I always feel the need to tell you exactly what circumstances under which I am recording. So, it's daylight, it's daytime, it's almost lunchtime, and I have to go to physics in an hour, so I'm going to film this, I'm going to go eat lunch, and then I'm going to go to physics, and then you won't see it till later. And now you know. I guess there are two main topics here, and I have a bunch of stuff to say about both of them, but I'm not entirely sure what it is that I have to say about them yet, so I'm just going to start talking and we're going to run with it. One on guilt. Jeff brought up that I wanted to talk about guilt. This was just because I think that guilt is fascinating and deeply unpleasant. I myself have a very well-developed guilt complex, and I feel guilty for all kinds of things, including, I don't know, really stupid things. Like, I do feel guilty for not going to a class, even when I know everything that's going on in it, and I know that it's useless, and I know that I don't have to go because someone has told me that I don't have to go. I still feel guilty. A good example of this is that I feel guilty because I am only taking 4 classes, that is 14 credits, even though I could take a maximum of 17, and I did start out with 17, but I actually couldn't deal with the workload, so I dropped one. But I felt really guilty for dropping the one course, even though I wouldn't actually have been able to do what I'm doing if I had 17 credits. And I know that it was the smart thing to do, but I still feel guilty for taking the easy way out, even though it's not that easy. It's just easier than the absolute most difficult way. And I always feel like I have to do the absolute most difficult thing, otherwise I'm not really getting my money's worth or my life's worth of experience. That said, I am well aware that, as my mum loves to point out, guilt is a wasted emotion. It doesn't give you anything concrete, it just makes you feel horrible and doesn't actually lead to anything good, unless, I suppose, you take action. Like, if you've killed someone and you feel guilty and you feel remorse and you turn yourself in, that's good. But guilt itself, especially when it's for something that doesn't really merit feeling guilty about, it just doesn't help anything. All that to say, guilt is absolutely normal, as Jeff said, but not very helpful. But I do think that if you never feel guilty at all, then you're probably a psychopath. So Spencer, it's good that you feel guilt because you are human and not like a horse. Point number 2 on knowing people. James, I thought it was very interesting that you brought up the fact that maybe we don't share information with lots of people and get really close to lots of people because we're afraid of being hurt. I'm kind of torn on that one. Because as a rule, in sort of elementary school and the beginning of high school, I only had a very small group of quite close friends. But then in my latter years of high school and here, I know so many people, and I have like a wide network of people that I'm quite friendly with, but I do only have a few close friends, and yet I still share quite a lot of information with the people who I only kind of know. I'm quite comfortable with them knowing things. I'm not really sure why. And it's not as though I go around telling everyone everything, but I do find myself telling people things and then thinking, why did I tell that person that thing? I don't actually know them that well. But yes, I would agree that it is pretty much impossible to be very, very close with many people at the same time. And it's evident when you change schools or change situations, you always leave some people behind. But I have this theory that as you go through life, it's like your hands have sieves on the end, and you collect up people, and then the sort of sandy people fall through the sieve, but then the really good people get stuck because they're bigger. Yeah, I think it's a good metaphor. Maybe this is just me, but I don't tell people things that at first glance wouldn't seem like a big deal, whereas I'll tell people other things that might seem more serious but actually aren't. That probably doesn't make any sense if you're not in my head. And I'm not really sure where I'm going with that thought, so I will leave you with that. What do you tell people? Because I think that's an interesting topic. To whom do you tell which things? Finally, with regard to punishments and challenges, I agree with Jeff in that I don't think that Spencer should do a separate punishment per se, but I do think that Spencer is well overdue for eating something weird. Because Spencer, you were always that calm guy who eats weird things, and I'm sorry, but you haven't eaten anything weird in a little while. So, if nothing else, find something weird and eat it for us, please. Oh, and in other news, I'm going home tomorrow, because it's Canadian Thanksgiving, so we have a long weekend, which is pretty exciting. But I will still be here when you see me next, which is next week, and that is when I will see you, and Spencer, please eat something weird for us tomorrow. Goodbye.